Welcome to Talespire, where every tale finds its voice. Are you new here? Subscribe and climb the spire with us. Let's begin. The clang of steel echoed through the castle corridors, sending a shiver through the guards on duty. Torches flickered against the stone walls, casting shadows that danced like restless spirits. The kingdom was on edge. Rumors of rebellion and betrayal had spread like wildfire. At the heart of it all, King Alaric strode through the grand hall, his cloak trailing behind him, eyes sharp as the edge of a sword. Tonight was meant to be a celebration, a show of unity among the nobles, but the tension in the air spoke otherwise. From the shadows, a figure watched. Her presence was subtle yet commanding, a delicate balance of grace and danger. Celine's dark eyes glimmered with intent, her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile that carried a promise of secrets untold. She had waited for this night, meticulously planning every moment, every glance, every word she would need to draw the king into her web. Revenge had been her guiding star, yet already, a tiny, unbidden curiosity flickered inside her. As the musicians struck the first chord of a ceremonial melody, King Alaric entered the grand ballroom, and the crowd hushed in awe. The chandeliers above sparkled like captured starlight, yet all Alaric could feel was the weight of suspicion pressing on his shoulders. A dagger hidden in the folds of a noble's cloak, a whisper of treachery from an untrustworthy courtier, he knew the danger ran closer than anyone suspected. Celine stepped forward as if by chance, her gown a cascade of midnight blue, catching the torchlight in subtle flashes. She moved with purpose, her gaze locked on Alaric as he scanned the room. When their eyes met, a spark ignited, a mixture of challenge and intrigue. The king's brow lifted. There was something familiar in the poise, yet utterly foreign in the energy she radiated. "Your Majesty," she said softly, her voice smooth like silk over steel, "it is an honor to witness the splendor of your court." Alaric's lips curved into a faint, calculating smile. "And who might you be, that I do not recall your presence among my guests?" "Some guests prefer to be remembered only when necessary," she replied, a playful edge beneath her composure. The king's interest sharpened. Here was a woman who dared speak without flattery, who carried herself like a storm contained in a single glance. He gestured for a nearby servant to bring her a goblet of wine, and Celine accepted, her fingers brushing his in the briefest contact, just enough to send an unexpected pulse through both of them. As the night wore on, whispers of rebellion and plots mingled with laughter and music. Celine navigated the ballroom with the precision of a chess master, planting subtle seeds of influence while carefully observing the king. Every movement, every word, every flicker of her eyes was calculated to provoke thought, to test boundaries. And yet, beneath the steel of her resolve, an unfamiliar warmth began to seep through, a curiosity, fascination, perhaps even something more dangerous, a budding affection she had sworn to suppress. Alaric, too, felt a tug of intrigue he had not expected. This woman, mysterious and sharp, had a fire that matched his own, yet he sensed shadows beneath her light, a hidden agenda, motives carefully veiled. He found himself watching her, wondering, strategizing, and for the first time in many months, he was unsettled, not by threats from his enemies, but by the enigmatic pull of a single person in his court. Later, when the revelry had thinned and the last of the musicians had gone, Alaric found himself in a secluded gallery, contemplating the fragile peace of his reign. Celine approached from the shadows, silent as a wraith, yet with a confidence that demanded recognition. "You linger in solitude, Your Majesty," she said, stepping closer, her eyes reflecting the torchlight like twin embers. "Solitude is sometimes necessary," he replied, turning to face her fully. "Especially when the company of some guests proves intriguing." A small, knowing smile curved Celine's lips. "And yet, even in intrigue, one can discern truth. Or at least, pieces of it." He studied her. She spoke carefully, weaving words that hinted at knowledge beyond what was apparent. And in that exchange, a silent game began, a dance of words and glances, each testing the other's boundaries. Neither would yield easily. The next days were a delicate balance of appearances and hidden strategies. Celine gained access to key figures, listening, observing, and nudging events just so. Her fingers left traces of influence like invisible brushstrokes across the canvas of the court. Meanwhile, Alaric found himself drawn to her, compelled by the sharpness of her mind, the intensity in her eyes, and the subtle vulnerability she did not openly reveal. Yet danger loomed constantly. One evening, a message was delivered under the cloak of darkness. A trusted advisor had begun plotting a coup, seeking to leverage the unrest in the kingdom. Alaric convened his council, and Celine, ever close at hand, offered her insights with a precision that impressed even the most seasoned advisors. She spoke of motives and opportunities with uncanny clarity, guiding Alaric's decisions without revealing the personal stakes she carried. It was during one such council that a rival noble made a pointed remark, questioning the loyalty of those who had recently grown close to the king. Alaric's gaze swept the room, resting momentarily on Celine. His eyes narrowed slightly, suspicion mingled with curiosity. She met his look evenly, betraying nothing, yet inwardly, her heart raced. One misstep, one word, and her plan for revenge could crumble before it had even begun. Later, when the halls were quiet and the moonlight streamed through arched windows, Celine allowed herself a moment of reflection. Revenge had been her guiding star, burning bright and steady. But now, each encounter with Alaric, each conversation, each shared glance, chipped away at the sharp edges of her resolve. She found herself wondering not about the revenge, but about him. The man beneath the crown, capable of thought, passion, and perhaps even honesty. A sudden commotion drew them both to the castle's ramparts. A messenger arrived, breathless and fearful, delivering news of unrest among the outer provinces, rebels moving, tensions escalating. Alaric's face hardened, his kingly composure slipping to reveal the weight of leadership. Celine stepped beside him, placing a gentle hand on his arm, not in manipulation, but instinctively, a gesture of solidarity. "You are not alone in this, Your Majesty," she said softly. Alaric regarded her, the edge of surprise in his eyes. He did not yet know her full intentions, nor the truth of her motives, but in that moment, the pull between them was undeniable. He nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of trust, or at least, a tentative opening to it. Over the following days, their interactions became a careful blend of tension, alliance, and subtle personal connection. Celine would hint at information only she could know, guiding Alaric's decisions, while keeping her ultimate goal hidden. Each time she succeeded, her pulse quickened, not from victory, but from the growing awareness that her carefully crafted plan might be shifting towards something else entirely. One evening, under the guise of discussing state matters, Celine found herself alone with Alaric in the castle library. Books lined the walls like silent witnesses, and the air was thick with the scent of parchment and candle wax. She hesitated for the briefest moment, then spoke. "Your enemies are clever, Your Majesty. But even cleverness can be undone by unexpected loyalty." Alaric studied her, eyes narrowing in contemplation. "And what of loyalty that comes with other intentions?" Celine's lips curved slightly, a mixture of amusement and caution. "Intentions can change. Especially when emotions become entangled." He blinked at her, the first crack in his carefully maintained composure. There was a charge in the air, a tension that neither strategy nor vigilance could fully account for. Both were acutely aware that the lines between manipulation and genuine connection were blurring, and neither was willing to retreat yet. As the days passed, whispers of rebellion grew louder, conspiracies intertwining with rumors of forbidden alliances. Celine navigated each perilous moment with skill, all while grappling with an internal storm that threatened to undo her. And somewhere in the corridors of power, Alaric watched, calculated, and wondered, could he trust this woman who seemed as dangerous as she was captivating? The first week had passed since their initial encounter, yet already, everything had changed. Trust, suspicion, desire, strategy, they were all threads in the same tangled web, and neither the king nor Celine could see how the pattern would finally resolve. CTA, if you're enjoying this tale of intrigue and forbidden connections, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment with your predictions, and subscribe to catch the next chapter of the kingdom story. The following morning, the castle was a hive of activity. Courtiers whispered in corridors, messages were dispatched at a frantic pace, and the faint scent of fear hung in the air. Alaric moved through it all with measured steps, his mind weighing each report, each rumor. Yet no amount of papers or petitions could quell the growing storm within his own heart. Celine had entered his life like a shadow and a spark all at once, and he could no longer ignore the pull she exerted on him. Celine, meanwhile, walked the halls with the grace of one entirely in control, yet beneath her composed exterior, her thoughts raced. The revenge she had plotted for months had always seemed clear and attainable: expose the king, disgrace him, seize the advantage for herself or her allies. But each interaction with Alaric chipped away at her resolve. His mind was sharp, yes, but also unexpectedly honorable. His words carried weight, not just power. And when he smiled, even briefly, it struck a chord within her she hadn't anticipated. Later that afternoon, Alaric summoned her to the council chamber under the guise of reviewing reports from the border provinces. Celine entered, her steps confident, eyes steady. Yet she felt the tiniest tremor of anticipation, a flicker of something she dared not name. "You've been helpful," Alaric said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "More than most would have been." Selene inclined her head. "I aim to serve the kingdom, Your Majesty. And those who threaten it should be made to see the consequences of their actions." Alaric's gaze lingered on her. "And what of consequences that affect those closest to us?" Her heart skipped. The king's words were careful, loaded with double meanings. She met his eyes evenly, hiding the rapid beat of her pulse. "We all must choose our paths wisely, sire. Even those we trust the most." A tense silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant clatter of quills and the soft murmur of the castle beyond the chamber doors. In that silence, a subtle understanding formed. Both were aware of the dangerous game being played, not just in the court, but in the hearts of those involved. The weeks that followed were a delicate balance of strategy and subtle intimacy. Selene's influence in the court grew, and her revenge plan moved forward with careful precision. She whispered warnings here, revealed truths there, all the while maintaining the appearance of loyalty and admiration. Alaric, ever perceptive, noticed the effects she had on the council's decisions, but still could not discern her true intentions. One evening, a messenger arrived with news that a coup was imminent. A faction of nobles had gathered in secret, intending to challenge Alaric's rule and install a puppet ruler in his stead. Alaric's face darkened as he read the report, the weight of his crown pressing heavier than ever. Selene, standing nearby, watched the change flicker across his features. Despite her plan, a pang of concern struck her. The thought of the king, in danger because of her machinations, sent an unfamiliar tightness through her chest. "You'll need a plan," she said quietly, stepping closer, her voice calm yet urgent. "And swift action." Alaric looked up, meeting her gaze. "And you'll help me?" Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "You'll find I am resourceful when the stakes are high." The following night, they met in the armory, away from prying eyes. Selene had discovered the identities of the conspirators, and together, she and Alaric began to craft a countermeasure. Their strategy sessions were intense, charged with unspoken tension. Every glance, every subtle touch, became a moment laden with electricity. "You think they suspect me?" Alaric asked at one point, leaning against a table, hands gripping the edge. "They suspect many things," Selene replied, her tone measured. "But never enough. That is their flaw and ours to exploit." Alaric chuckled softly, but there was an edge of admiration in his eyes. "You are clever. Too clever, perhaps. And yet, your enemies are cleverer still," she countered. "We cannot afford miscalculations." Hours passed as they pored over maps, letters, and intelligence. The proximity, the intensity, the shared purpose, it all began to blur the lines between duty and desire. Selene felt a warmth she could not explain, a pull toward Alaric that was neither strategy nor pretense. And Alaric, for his part, found himself distracted by more than just the plot, by her expressions, the subtle tilt of her head, the way her presence seemed to command the space around her. Their alliance reached a critical test when one of the conspirators tried to infiltrate the castle under the cover of darkness. Alaric and Selene intercepted him near the northern gate, shadows stretching long under the torchlight. The confrontation was tense, swords drawn, words exchanged, hearts racing. "You will not succeed," Alaric said, voice firm yet tinged with intensity. Selene moved with precision, disarming the intruder in a swift motion, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "Nor will you threaten this kingdom," she added, her voice carrying authority and something else, a subtle edge of passion that lingered longer than necessary. The intruder fled, leaving them alone in the cold night. They stood close, neither moving to break the space between them. Their breaths mingled in the chill air, and Selene's heart hammered. The calculated distance she had maintained began to crumble, replaced by a forbidden longing she could not name. "You were impressive," Alaric said quietly, eyes dark, studying her. Selene's lips parted slightly, a blush she could not entirely conceal. I am resourceful when necessary," she replied, her voice catching ever so slightly. Alaric took a step closer, and the tension tightened between them, unspoken yet undeniable. Neither spoke, but the air was charged, each aware that their fates, personal and political, were entwined more deeply than either had anticipated. The next morning brought new challenges. Rumors had begun circulating about the unusual alliance between the king and Selene, whispers of favoritism and secret influence. Alaric faced questions from his council, pointed remarks meant to provoke suspicion. Selene stood by him, her counsel precise, her words persuasive. Yet even in her careful manipulation, she found herself protective, not for strategy, but for the man she had planned to destroy. Her internal struggle grew with each passing day. The revenge that had once guided her with clarity now competed with emotions she did not fully understand. She felt guilt, fear, and a growing affection that threatened to unravel the careful web she had spun. Every interaction with Alaric reminded her of what she had planned and of what she might lose if she allowed herself to care. One afternoon, while overseeing preparations for a council meeting, Alaric called her aside. "Selene," he began, his voice low, "I sense there is more to you than even your sharp mind reveals. You carry secrets, burdens perhaps, that you do not share." Selene's breath caught, her carefully maintained composure faltering for a brief moment. "We all carry burdens, Your Majesty," she replied, steadying herself. "Some heavier than others." Alaric studied her, as if weighing every word, every glance. "And yet, some burdens change us. Some bind us to choices we never anticipated." For a heartbeat, their eyes locked, and the tension that had been building over weeks reached its apex. The air between them was charged with both fear and desire, loyalty and betrayal, revenge and something else, something neither dared name aloud. Later that evening, alone in the castle garden, Selene allowed herself a moment to breathe. The moonlight cast silver across the paths, and the night was quiet except for the soft rustle of leaves. She thought of Alaric, his strength, his wisdom, his unexpected kindness. She thought of the plan she had so carefully crafted, the path of revenge she had intended to follow. And for the first time, she questioned whether she could continue down that path, knowing what her heart might now demand. The kingdom remained tense, conspiracies in motion, and yet amid the danger, something tender was taking root. Each calculated move, each whispered strategy, was now shadowed by unspoken emotions that neither Selene nor Alaric could ignore. CTA, are you loving this mix of royal intrigue and forbidden connections? Hit the like button, comment below who you think will betray the kingdom next, and subscribe to catch the thrilling conclusion. The following days were a blur of whispered secrets and tightened security. The conspirators had grown bolder, emboldened by rumors of weakness, yet Alaric and Selene moved with calculated precision to counter every threat. Their alliance had evolved, no longer purely political, it was now personal, a bond forged in strategy, danger, and the subtle threads of growing affection. One night, news arrived that a faction of nobles had gathered in the eastern tower, planning to seize control under the cover of darkness. Alaric's jaw tightened as he read the intelligence. "They believe the king is vulnerable," he muttered, eyes narrowing. "They underestimate us." Selene stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm, a gesture of solidarity that sent an unexpected thrill through them both. "Then we will remind them who truly commands this kingdom," she said, her voice firm but carrying a warmth that had nothing to do with strategy. Under the cover of night, Alaric and Selene moved through the castle corridors, leading a small contingent of loyal guards. Every shadow seemed to hold danger, every whisper a potential threat. Selene's heart pounded, not only from the peril but from the closeness of Alaric at her side, his presence grounding yet electrifying. They reached the eastern tower just as the conspirators attempted to force the gates. A clash erupted, steel against steel, shouts echoing through the stone halls. Selene fought with lethal precision, disarming and subduing intruders with a skill that left even seasoned guards in awe. Alaric's sword struck true, his leadership turning chaos into order. Amid the fight, a conspirator lunged toward the king. Selene reacted instinctively, placing herself in the path, her blade meeting his with a deadly force. Alaric's eyes widened, and for a heartbeat, time seemed suspended. She met his gaze, unflinching, and he saw in her the courage and the care that had been growing quietly all along. The intruder fell, and the remaining rebels fled into the night. The castle was silent once more, broken only by the ragged breaths of those who had survived the confrontation. Alaric turned to Selene, his expression unreadable. "You risked yourself for me," he said quietly, voice tinged with awe and something deeper, something unspoken. Selene lowered her blade, a mix of relief and something she could no longer deny shining in her eyes. "The kingdom matters," she said, her voice soft. "And so do you." The weight of her words hung between them. Alaric stepped closer, his hand reaching out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And yet I wonder," he murmured, "how much of what I see is truth, and how much is part of a plan I do not yet understand." Selene's breath caught. For so long, her revenge had been the one constant, her path clear and unyielding. But now, standing before him, she realized that her heart had diverged from that path. I planned for vengeance, she admitted, voice trembling with honesty. But in the process, I found something else. Something I did not expect. Alaric's gaze softened, and he took her hands in his. And what is that? She looked into his eyes, seeing both the king and the man beneath the crown. Love, she whispered. I did not mean for it, but it found me. For a moment, silence enveloped them. Outside, the castle rested, the danger past. Inside, two hearts aligned in a way that neither politics nor revenge could undo. Over the following days, Celine revealed the details of her original plan. Alaric listened, initially wary, yet he saw in her honesty and bravery a truth that surpassed betrayal. The court, sensing the shift in loyalty and unity, began to stabilize. Rivals either fled or submitted, recognizing that the bond between the king and this enigmatic woman was not to be trifled with. Celine's heart had changed completely. Where once there had been calculated vengeance, there was now genuine care, an attachment she could neither explain nor resist. Alaric, too, found himself drawn to her in ways he had not anticipated, understanding that leadership often meant navigating dangerous waters and sometimes surrendering to the tides of the heart. One evening, as the sun set in hues of gold and crimson over the castle walls, Alaric and Celine walked the ramparts together. The kingdom lay peaceful beneath them, a fragile calm after a storm of plotting and betrayal. Celine's hand brushed his, this time not as strategy, not as a test, but as an affirmation of something real. You've changed the course of this kingdom, Alaric said, his eyes on hers. And you've changed me. She smiled softly, leaning just slightly closer. And you've changed me, she admitted, voice low, almost a whisper against the wind. I came here for revenge, and found something far more dangerous. Love. He chuckled, a sound mingling relief, amusement, and deep affection. Dangerous indeed, he said. But perhaps the kind of danger worth embracing. Their hands intertwined, fingers locking in a gesture that spoke more than words ever could. For the first time, Celine felt the weight of her past plans lift, replaced by the promise of something she had never anticipated: trust, unity, and love that had arisen from the ashes of betrayal. The castle, once filled with whispers of treachery, now echoed with a quiet peace. Courtiers looked on, noting the unusual closeness between the king and his advisor, yet none dared question it. The kingdom's power had shifted not through deceit, but through courage, honesty, and the unanticipated alignment of hearts that had once been set on collision courses. As night fell, Alaric and Celine stood atop the highest tower, gazing over their domain. Stars glimmered in the sky, mirrored by the torchlights below. It was a moment of calm after the storm, a chance to breathe, to reflect, and to embrace the future together. We survived, Celine said softly. We did, Alaric agreed. And perhaps, against all odds, we found something worth protecting even more than the kingdom itself. Celine leaned into him, her head resting lightly against his shoulder. Yes, she whispered, closing her eyes. Even more than the kingdom. And for the first time since her arrival, Celine allowed herself to fully release the grip of revenge, surrendering instead to a love she had not planned for, but one that promised a lifetime of loyalty, trust, and partnership. The kingdom remained secure, but the true victory lay not in the castle walls, the armies, or the politics. It lay in hearts aligned, in trust earned, and in love forged from the fires of conflict. CTA, if you loved this thrilling tale of royal intrigue, revenge, and unexpected love, make sure to like this video, leave a comment sharing your favorite moment, and subscribe for more gripping stories from kingdoms where passion and politics collide.